When I witnessed the cleaning lady defend my special daughter, my world turned upside down. I will never forget that day. The sun was setting, painting the sky in chaotic strokes of orange and purple, while Anna sat trembling on the playground swing. Her tiny hands gripped the chains, knuckles white with fear. I watched from across the field, my heart racing, a tightness forming in my chest. Anna struggled with the kids at school. Her laughter often turned to tears, like rain on a sunshiny day, and my heart ached every time. She was my everything, my light. But there she was, small and vulnerable, surrounded by older kids who didn't see her sweet spirit, they only saw the fragile girl who didn't quite fit in. "Why can't you just be normal?" a voice sneered, and I felt the warmth of the afternoon sun turn icy. Tears stung my eyes. I couldn't bear it. I wanted to rush in, to shield her from the cruel world, but my feet felt glued to the ground. All the past struggles rushed back, the lonely lunch tables, the playground exclusions, the endless talk of normal. Then I saw her. The cleaning lady from the school, Isabel. She typically blended into the background, unnoticed, like shadows at dusk. But today, she stepped forward. Her bony frame was suddenly imposing. With every stride, her face transformed from routine into fierce determination. I could see the glimmer in her eyes, a protective spark, like a flame igniting the darkness. "Enough!" she yelled. Her voice cracked like thunder over the playground noise. "You will not treat her like this." The children froze, their laughs dying on the wind. "What does she care?" one of them laughed, but the words were hollow, hanging in the air like a broken promise. Isabel's gaze pierced through them, and the way she stood tall, defiant, made me think of a warrior ready for battle. My heart swelled with hope, yet dread coiled in my gut. In that moment, everything shifted. My anxiety, my fears for Anna, mingled with an unfamiliar sense of gratitude for this brave stranger. But as Isabel continued, a deep silence enveloped us all. The usual sounds of laughter and play faded away, leaving only the rustling of leaves and held breaths. "Do you know what it's like," she continued, her voice steady, "to be bullied for what you are? She's unique. Special. You don't have the right to break her spirit." I felt pride swell inside me, my heart racing as emotions stormed like a wild sea. Was this person I barely knew really standing up for my daughter? But the kids stared, and I was struck by the conflict brewing. A teacher approached, dumbfounded, and an uneasy tension settled in the air. In that heartbeat, something sinister sparked within me. I wanted to cheer. I wanted to scream for joy. But what would happen next? Would they escalate? As the crowd around us murmured, faces wide-eyed and anxious, Isabel beckoned Anna over, pulling her into a gentle embrace. I could see Anna's shoulders relax, her breathing steady as a tear slipped down her cheek, but the atmosphere felt electric. It was raw, unfiltered. I wanted answers. What had triggered this bravery? Why did Isabel care so deeply for my daughter? The moment hung there, suspended in time, ready to burst. Just before I thought I could approach them, someone in the background yelled, "Shall pay for this." My blood ran cold. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a pendulum swing between hope and fear. Isabel's bold intervention echoed through the school hallways, inspiring a newfound resilience within Anna. It was as if a light had pierced the clouds of despair. But with that light came shadows, lurking ominously. At drop-off each morning, I would watch Anna step into the school building, her small frame swallowed by the throng of students. She walked a little taller, her grip on her lunchbox steadier, yet the whispers followed her like an unwelcome breeze. Isabel's new favorite, one girl hissed as she pushed past Anna, flinging a paper airplane that barely missed her. Each sting of those words felt like knife wounds, and I battled the urge to intervene once more, to storm down the hallway and snatch my daughter away from the cruelty around her. Isabel had become a guardian angel of sorts, her presence at the school a comforting constant. On days when I would bring Anna to school, I often caught Isabel's eye as she scrubbed the cafeteria tables or organized supplies in the art room. We'd exchange knowing glances, a silent acknowledgement of our shared plight. Still, I longed to speak to her, to understand what drove her to protect my daughter so fervently. One chilly afternoon, I decided to tread into the territory of vulnerability. I approached her while she was putting away cleaning supplies. "Isabel," I began, my voice shaky, "thank you for what you did for Anna. You have no idea, it meant everything." She paused, her movements sinking into the stillness of the moment. "No, thank you," she replied quietly. "It breaks my heart to see kids get hurt. I've seen too much of it." The weight of her words hung between us, opening a door to her past that I knew was lined with scars. "I wish I could do more," I admitted, feeling the sting of helplessness press down on me. "You already are, by just being here for her," Isabel said. Her eyes softened, tracing back to the window where Anna was giggling with a few classmates, a moment of joy that felt fragile yet significant. "But understand, it's not just about standing up against bullying. It's about giving her the tools to stand up for herself." Inspired by her words, I began to wonder if maybe I had been too overprotective. I envisioned small steps, teaching Anna to find her voice, but every time I tried, a surge of fear gripped me. What if she failed and the pain returned worse than before? That evening as we sat at dinner, the table adorned with the remnants of a long day, I tested the waters. "Honey, how did you feel today? About school and everything?" Anna paused, her fork motionless. "Isabel says I'm special, that different isn't bad." "I like that," she said softly, the spark of hope in her eyes warming my heart. "But did anyone say anything mean?" I dared to ask, my stomach knotting. She squirmed, tracing her fingers across the table, caught in that moment of reflection that children often were so easily, like fleeting clouds. "Some kids whispered that I shouldn't play with her." For a moment, the room held its breath. My pulse quickened, a tempest stirred inside me. "Did you tell anyone?" "No." A flat response, and yet, it held a weight that confused me. Was it a sign of strength or defeat? "Would you want to talk to Isabel about it more?" I tried to steer the conversation toward safety, to ignite some form of guidance for my daughter. "Can we just be?" Anna replied, almost impatiently, her small hands clenched into fists. A wave of sadness crashed over me. How could I expect her to navigate the rough waters of childhood when I still struggled with my fears? That night, I lay awake, the shadows in my mind dancing with questions and doubts that conspired in silence. The walls of our home felt both safe and constraining, and I couldn't help but wonder, was Anna truly safe at school? Could Isabel continue to be her shield, or would the fallout from that confrontation come crashing down again? The following morning, as I made silently prepared breakfast, I felt the cataclysm brewing anew. News reports flickered on the television, filling the air. With a sense of dread, incidents of bullying escalating, a surge in mental health crises among young children. My heart raced as I turned the channel, hoping for something uplifting, but each story resonated with familiar pain. And then, just as the coffee brewed, a shrill chime from my phone shook the air. An anonymous text flashed on the screen, shattering my moment of calm: "Your daughter will pay for what happened." My heart dropped. Who had sent it? My fingers trembled as I stared at the screen, a cruel wave of realization crashing over me. The nightmares we had faced were only beginning. Anna's safe haven was teetering on the brink, and all my fears felt validated. Before I could think further, a soft voice broke through the aftershock. "Mom, I'm ready for school." I turned, forcing a smile, but inside, the panic swirled violently. Today would not only determine Anna's courage, it would take all of mine. The car ride to school became a cacophony of silence, punctuated only by the soft hum of the engine and the distant echoes of children's laughter that seemed to mock my turmoil. I stole glances at Anna through the rearview mirror, her face alight with innocence, yet clouded by the weight of unspoken fears. How could I protect her when I felt so powerless? As we approached the school, I parked and turned to her, a lump lodged in my throat. Anna, remember what we talked about. If you ever feel scared or uncomfortable, you can come to me or Isabel. She nodded, though her eyes were distant. I will, Mom. But can we just do what Isabel said? Can we just be? Her simplicity melted my heart, yet it hung heavy with the unacknowledged complexity of her reality. I wanted to shout that being was easy and wonderful for a child, but it felt like an impossible luxury in a world strewn with hazards. Stepping out of the car, I felt the brisk air bite at my face, the chill yet another reminder of what we were up against. I walked her to the entrance, my heart racing with each step, as the whispers of the school grew louder, a steady hum of anxiety curling around us. Suddenly, a figure darted past us, and laughter erupted. A group of girls trailed in their wake, their voices sharp with ridicule that cut into my protective instincts. Look, it's Anna. Get a look at her lunchbox, so lame. I instinctively moved closer to Anna, wanting to shield her from their barbs, but she stood firm, seemingly absorbing the taunts, her expression a blend of confusion and hurt. It's just a lunchbox, she whispered, almost to herself, as if trying to convince her heart rather than me. In that moment, Isabel appeared like a beacon, her energy lighting up the hallway. She must have sensed the shift, inviting Anna to stand with her as she raised her hands to capture the attention of the students milling about. Hey everyone! She called, her voice ringing clear. Let's focus on kindness today. What does kindness look like? How can we lift each other up? Anna's eyes lit up, her body instinctively shifting closer to Isabel. Seeing that spark of possibility, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. Even amidst the shadows of bullying, Isabel had a way of igniting light. But just as quickly, that light was consuming me with questions. Could one person's kindness truly combat the overwhelming tide of negativity? After a farewell hug, I left Anna standing with Isabel, my worry echoing in the corridors of my mind. I nearly succumbed to the urge to linger, but I forced myself to drive away, cloaked in unease. The haunting text replayed in my mind, gnawing at any sense of peace I had hoped to find. Back home, I paced the floor, my thoughts a tangled web of fear, guilt, and anger. I reached for my phone, wanting to compose a message to Isabel. I opened my contacts only to see an unexpected name: Reinhold. Reinhold had been a dear friend from high school, but we had lost touch over the years. He had once penned poems about resilience and courage, words filled with a depth that could solely be drawn from lived experiences. Without a second thought, I typed out a message. It's been a long time. I could really use someone to talk to if you have time. Before I clicked send, a rush of vulnerability washed over me. What if he was not the same man I remembered? What if he had moved on, no longer interested in reconnecting? The thought of reaching out sent tremors down my spine, yet something told me to take this leap of faith. Just send it, I whispered to myself, pressing send. After what felt like an eternity, I received a reply. I'm here. Let's meet at the usual place. Usual place. I thought, memories flooding in before my mind settled on a quaint cafe that resonated with echoes of laughter and camaraderie from a happier past. Perhaps it was a good way to ground myself. The cafe was alive with warmth when I entered, the aroma of fresh coffee enveloping me like an embrace. Reinhold was already seated at a table, a familiar smile brightening his face as he spotted me. It's so good to see you, he exclaimed, standing up to envelop me in a warm hug that felt like a promise of understanding. As we settled in, the conversation flowed between laughter and shared stories. Yet beneath that warmth, the urgency of my current struggles loomed. ID steered the topics deftly away from Anna and the dark clouds following her. But just when a sense of calm settled in my heart, a buzz from my phone shattered the moment. Picking it up, my stomach plummeted at the sight of another anonymous text: "Isabel can't protect her forever." I gasped, the fear lacing around my chest tightening its grip. I fumbled for my breath, looking up at Reinhold, whose expression turned grave with concern. I was stunned. How much of my turmoil had I unwittingly projected, and how was I supposed to explain this escalating war on my daughter's childhood? All I could do was stare at the screen, the shadows closing in once more, whispering of danger yet to come. Reinhold reached across the table, his hand resting gently on mine. "What's happening, truly?" he asked, a soft but unwavering urgency in his voice, and as Dinah's face flashed in my mind, I realized I was teetering on a precipice. A choice lay before me. To shield her or to fight. To protect her heart or to embolden it. As the cafe hummed around us, the buzz of my phone stilled all laughter. Reinhold's warm presence felt like a lifeline, yet my heart raced as the message loomed ominously, casting a shadow on our reunion. My fingers trembled, the phone threatening to slip from my grasp. "Isabel can't protect her forever." The words twisted in my mind, echoing like a dark chant amidst the cafe's lively chatter. Reinhold's hand wrapped reassuringly around mine, grounding me against the onslaught of fear. "What's wrong?" he pressed gently, his gaze piercing through my frazzled exterior. I could see the lines of concern etching his brow, reminding me that beneath the surface smiles, he understood depth. He had lived through storms of his own. Taking a deep breath, I found the words spilling from my lips. "Someone is threatening Anna. It's not just the teasing at school. I got this text." My voice broke, and I felt my eyes sting, the weight of my fears threatening to spill into tears. "I don't know who it is or what they want, but I can't." Before I could complete my thought, a figure entered the cafe, crashing into my anxieties like a wave. It was the cleaning lady from the school, Gloria, her face illuminated by the familiar glow of warmth that seemed to lighten the dullest of days. I had seen her sweeping the hallways, always humming a gentle tune, yet here she was in an unexpected burst of color and spirit. "Excuse me," she called, her voice cutting through the subdued air as she approached our table. "Is everything all right?" Reinhold turned towards her, surprise marking his features, while I struggled to find my voice. I hadn't anticipated a confrontation, let alone the kindness of someone I barely knew, yet there was something about Gloria. An aura of fierce protectiveness shone in her eyes, a quality that seemed to demand respect, even from a distance. We're just catching up," I managed, yet the apprehension in my voice rang hollow against the urgency of my thoughts. "I heard about the troubles at the school. The bullying, the texts," she began, her demeanor instantly shifting into something sharper, more authoritative. "I don't even work in the classrooms, but my heart hurts for those kids. We have to intervene." Reinhold's expression shifted to one of surprise and admiration as he watched Gloria. "Do you think you can help?" he asked, a hint of hope digging through the worry that clouded the air between us. Gloria paused, weighing her words like they were precious stones, then said, "We can't let them suffocate the light these kids have. If we band together, parents, teachers, custodians, I'm certain we can make them listen." There was something about her resolve that sparked a flicker of warmth inside me, yet it quickly dimmed with lingering doubt. "Anna can be a target," I whispered, the words barely reaching the table's surface. "What if my taking a stand puts her in even more danger? I can't let them get to her." "Letting fear dictate your choices isn't the way forward," Gloria said gently yet firmly, the force of her gaze wrapping around my hesitation. "But turning away because of fear, that's the slippery slope. Remember, light breaks through the cracks of darkness. We must be the cracks." As I wrestled with her words, Reinhold squeezed my hand, whispering encouragement. The burden on my heart seemed momentarily released, coaxing a glimmer of resolve. Could something as simple as community kindness take down the shadows threatening our lives? Gloria leaned closer, her voice lowering urgently. "I've seen it happen. A child can be resilient when they're surrounded by people who care. We can form a support system, organize awareness for the kids facing bullying. It starts with parents. If you can help rally others, this could become a wave of change." Her unwavering belief doused my cynicism in a sudden rush of warmth. Here was an unexpected ally. "You're right," I found myself saying, trying to tether the seams of my fear to a thread of hope. "But I'm scared it'll fail her. We all are," she replied, her expression turning softer. "But fear isn't a stop sign, it's a compass guiding us towards what matters. Love and support shape bravery. Let's do this together." Just then, there was an unsettling buzz from my phone again. I glanced down, dread pooling within. Message line lit up with a new alert. I opened it before I could stop myself. "You should have kept her away from the cleaning lady." My breath caught, the world narrowing to a single point. This wasn't just a fight against a nameless tormentor, it felt like a clash with something darker, something lurking in the shadows, waiting for a misstep. The weight of my fear came crashing down, heavier than before, as I looked up into Reinhold's eyes, realization dawning between us. This battle was far larger than any of us had anticipated, torn between taking a stand for Anna and the very real threat looming behind every corner. I was left grappling with a decision that could either empower us or expose us to deeper dangers. "I don't know if I can do this," I murmured, the words barely escaping my lips as dread pooled in my stomach, but in the flicker of Gloria's determined gaze, I felt a flicker of courage, the vision of unyielding light in a world that felt far too dim. Would it be enough? The cafe felt like a sanctuary wrapped in a gloomy shroud, with Gloria's presence lighting dark corners I didn't know existed. Yet as the weight of the threat settled heavily on my shoulders, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle we were on the verge of waging was already being manipulated by forces unseen. Reinhold's hand tightening around mine was a tether I clung to as my thoughts spiraled. "I can't let Anna get hurt because of me. I need to keep her safe," I murmured, scanning the room as if it held the answers, the assurance that everything would be all right. But how could I still doubt when a stack of anonymous messages loomed above me like a dark cloud? "Then you're already thinking in the wrong direction," Gloria interjected, her voice wrapping around my burgeoning fears like an embrace. "Safety doesn't come from hiding away. We have to stand up, lean into the discomfort, and fight back." A flicker of defiance sparked deep within me. Could we really dismantle the walls of cruelty? But even as my heart held on to her words, the new text buzzed like an electric current between us. My phone still pulsed ominously in my hand, urging me to confront what I most feared. Before I could gather myself, Anna burst in through the cafe door, breathless and glowing. As her eyes scanned the room, they landed straight on me, and the corners of her mouth lifted as if the world had brightened. For a moment, all the dark messages evaporated in the sheer brightness radiating from her presence. She rushed towards me, her school bag bouncing against her side, unwavering in her energy. "Mom, you won't believe what happened today," she exclaimed, her voice a melody amidst the murmur. The chaos of my worries faded for a heartbeat as I took in her joyful face, but then, in a breath caught too quickly, I remembered my fear, the veiled threats lurking like shadows just beyond her laughter. I wanted to shield her, to gather her up and hide her away. Instead, she stood there, a beacon of hope on the edge of a precipice where darkness might soon creep in. "Anna, sweetie, I need to talk to you about something," I said, trying to mask the urgency pulling at my heart. Her smile faltered for a brief moment, a small crack that sent chills racing down my spine. "Is something wrong?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. Glancing at Reinhold, I felt the knot in my stomach tighten even more. I had always been good at protecting her world from the harshness outside, but now it felt like those very walls were breaking down around us. "Just some changes at school," I managed finally, attempting to weave a reassuring thread into my voice, but it felt thin and frayed. "We're meeting some people to talk about some of the challenges." "You don't have to worry, Mom, tell me the truth," Anna insisted, her brows furrowing in that way that mirrored my own when I was trying to decipher troubling matters. "What's really going on?" A silence blanketed our small booth, the weight of my silence heavy with unsaid truths. Reinhold looked at me, his eyes reflecting concern that threatened to spiral into a deeper abyss. Then, as if sensing the tension, Gloria chimed in. "Anna, it's about standing up for yourself and your friends. There are people who care about you, and we're working on ways to face the challenges together. You're not alone in this. It was a small attempt, a flickering light against a darkness I feared enveloped us. But would it change anything? Would it really matter once the tormentors decided to strike harder? Anna nodded slowly, but the vulnerability in her eyes pooled like liquid glass, ready to break. Is that why you're so worried, Mom? Because of the messages? My heart sank. How could she know? Had this burden turned her innocence into something she had to shoulder too? I want to protect you, Anna. I hear what's happening, and I'm scared, I admitted finally, my truth spilling out despite my reservations. But we need to confront this together, okay? It might not be easy, but we have to believe in ourselves. The fear I saw in her gaze was a mirror of my own, but in that moment, something shifted. A blend of shared determination and vulnerability sparked between us. Perhaps in facing the darkness together, we could find the even faintest beam of light. Can I help? Anna asked suddenly, and the earnestness in her voice felt weighty yet liberating. I don't want you to carry this alone. What can I do? Reinhold's hand released mine for a heartbeat so he could reach for Anna's, and together they formed a circle of strength. You're already doing it, he said, his voice steady and filled with warmth. By just being you, you're part of the change. But as I smiled through the haze of my worry, my phone vibrated again, this time insistent, harrowing, a series of messages flooding in with furious velocity. My heart dropped into a tempest. Keep her close, one text read. You'll never stop what's coming. She's already marked. My breath hitched, the weight of each word pressing down on me like a ship stranded at sea. Mom. Anna's small voice interrupted my dread-fueled thoughts. I turned to her, feeling my composure fraying, my world spiraling further off course. Are you okay, Mom? Those words shattered the moment, and in that beating silence, I realized I could no longer keep these shadows away from her. Yet, standing there, we made a vow, a fragile yet fierce promise to protect one another. But as the setting sun cast an eerie glow outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkest storm was yet to come. Would we be prepared when the tide turned? The cafe buzzed with a familiarity that felt like home, yet each laugh and clink of cutlery was laced with an urgency that threatened to unravel me. Anna's innocent curiosity hung in the air, mixing with the tremors of dread battering against my mind. I pressed my phone against my thigh, desperate to shield its sinister messages from her gaze, but the looming threat felt suffocating, as if I were trapped in a glass box, watching the world unfold just out of reach. The warmth of Reinhold's hand offered fleeting comfort, grounding me against the growing anxiety. His eyes flicked over to the door, and I felt his tension as footsteps echoed across the tiled floor. It was the cleaning lady, Maria, unassuming, soft-spoken, and often overlooked, just like the quiet corners of this cafe where chaos thrived. But today, something was different. Mariah's eyes, usually dulled by the struggle for survival, sparkled with a fierce protectiveness. She caught my eye and leaned forward, her voice low but imbued with a strength I had never heard before. Keep your heads up, okay? I know what's going on. I've seen it. I started, surprised that the weight of our turmoil had somehow reached her ears. Maria, we can't afford to enough, she interrupted gently, yet firmly. You all matter here. Don't let fear steal your brightness. I've got your back. Anna looked between us, a flicker of confusion mixed with admiration painting her face. My own conflict tightened around my heart. Could we really lean on someone who seemed so small in the vast world of challenge we faced? I'm not going to hide. Anna's declaration cut through my spiraling thoughts. I want to help people, like you, Maria. In that moment, the spark in my daughter reignited a flame that had begun to flicker too low under the weight of uncertainty, yet dread coiled tight around me, squeezing all hope until it felt like a thin thread ready to snap. Mariah's gaze softened with understanding. Then help me, help others. Small acts can break the heaviness. Just then, a faint sigh of relief broke through my worries. I didn't want to burden her with my insurmountable fears, and yet seeing her determination allowed a whisper of belief to circulate in my chest. What a precious gift it was to stand together amidst the chaos. But as the moments passed, that tentative hope was eclipsed by the shadows creeping through the cafe windows. From across the room, I spotted a group of students known for their bullying, their laughter dripping with malice. It felt like a damning reminder of the challenges that loomed ominously on our horizon. "Mom, can I?" Anna's words trailed off as she caught sight of them too, her little body tensing beside me. I recognized it instinct to recoil from harm, to hide her head in the sand and wish the world away. "Let's go," I said, trying to promote an air of calm, but I felt as if I were guiding us all toward the gallows. "Wait," Reinhold interrupted, a fierce determination burning in his tone. "We can't just avoid them. This is part of the battle we need to face, all of us together." "Together," I murmured, as if the word could mend the rift in my heart. Then, without warning, Maria stood tall, addressing the group of students directly, her voice steady and unwavering. "You're capable of better than this. Stop hiding behind cruelty, pick compassion instead." The boldness of her statement rippled through me like a shockwave. The students froze, their laughter abruptly stilled, the disbelief twisted into contempt on their faces. It felt like an entire world teetered on the edge of a knife, but just then, a figure emerged behind them, a much larger silhouette. It was Marcus, the ringleader of the group. His body radiated chaos as he stepped forward with simmering anger. "This doesn't concern you, cleaning lady. Stay in your lane. Things need to change, and you all know it," Maria retorted, her voice unwavering as she stood her ground. "Why don't you leave it to the people who can actually make a difference?" Marcus sneered, and in that moment, a chill wrapped around me, thick and suffocating, as anxiety tightened its grip on my heart. "Stop. Just stop." Anna shouted, her youthful voice a breathtaking blend of courage and desperation. The eyes of everyone in the cafe turned to her. It was a defiant plea that echoed through the stillness, and for a brief moment, the tension in the air incandescently shifted. Suddenly, as we all took a collective breath, my phone buzzed once again, the screen lighting up like a beacon. It was another message, as ominous as the last. "If you want to protect your family, make better choices. I know where you are." My heart plummeted. "No," I whispered, barely audible to the others. But Anna must have seen the panic rising in me, as something akin to realization dawned in her gaze. "Mom." Her voice was small, tentative, yet full of an urgency that called me to act. "What does that mean?" For the first time that evening, I felt the fabric of my resolve begin to fray, thoughts racing ahead, the darkness threatening to drag us down again. Every instinct urged me to protect her, to shield her from this crisis, from the monsters lurking in the shadows. Yet, here we were, standing in unison, as Maria held steady against the tide of cruelty, and Anna, my sweet, passionate girl, stood in defiance of fear. What awaited us, I didn't know. But as tension crackled in the air like a live wire, I recognized a new reality unfolding. The precipice was closer than I thought, and I was terrified of the fall, but my daughter's brave heart shone brightly against the encroaching shadow. And in that moment, even as uncertainty loomed, I realized that standing together was the only way forward. But what if it wasn't enough? Would we uncover the true extent of the threats before they blew us apart at the seams? Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, a quiet thrum echoing in the tense atmosphere, the kind of silence that stretches thinner with each second until it snaps. I clutched the table, its smooth surface a poor shield against my racing thoughts. Maria had stood tall, but I could see the way Marcus' gaze flickered toward the door, searching for allies, for backers in his cruelty. "Mom, what does that message mean?" Anna repeated, her voice barely above a whisper, but the earnestness crackled in the air like static. Just a misunderstanding," I managed, even as my heart reeled. Was it really just a misunderstanding? The message bore the weight of truth, a horrifying promise of violence hovering like a storm cloud above us. Marcus shifted his attention from Maria to Anna, amusement mixed with disdain dancing on his lips. "You think you can change anything, little girl? You're just like her, hopelessly naive." He gestured towards Maria, his words slicing through the air. "You don't belong here, just like she doesn't." No, I found my voice, sharp and panicked. "No, you're wrong. Anna does belong here. Everyone deserves to feel safe." A spark of disbelief crossed Marcus' face, but there remained an unsettling confidence in his posture. The group of students behind him stirred, whispers slithering through them, but I could see the crunch of fear twinging at their edges too. Did they fear Marcus as much as they feared the rise of compassion? Anna stepped forward, surprising not only me but even Marcus. Being kind isn't weak. We can help each other instead of tearing each other down. Her small body radiated a strength that knocked the breath from my lungs. Kind? Is that what you think this is about? Marcus mocked, his laughter sharp and venomous. Yet, as he surveyed the room, a flicker of uncertainty rippled through him. I couldn't tell if it was the mounting pressure of the collective stares or the unexpected heat of Anna's words unnerving him. Either way, I felt a precarious balance tipping. Then, as if the world around me had taken a breath, Reinhold stepped closer, his quiet strength weaving through the chaos. You don't have to do this, Marcus. We can find a way through without resorting to this. Find a way through? He echoed with scorching mockery, but behind his bravado, shadows danced uneasily. You don't get it, do you? The weak don't survive. A storm brewed within me at his words, anger weaving through the fear that had paralyzed me. I thought of Anna and our struggles, of Mariah's kindness, and the fragile connections knitting unseen threads between us. You're wrong. Kindness is the strongest weapon we have. As those words erupted unexpectedly from me, a hush draped over the cafe, stunned silence catching like a breath held too long. All eyes shifted back to Anna, who was emboldened by the moment, her gaze steady and unwavering, a lighthouse against all that darkness. Then, in a surprising maneuver, Maria took a step toward Marcus, her eyes unflinching. And it's never too late to choose differently. There was a weight to her words, as if she drew upon all the struggles she bore, all the heartaches inflicted by those like Marcus. His eyes narrowed, removing the glimmer of uncertainty that had sparked moments ago. You're all just begging for pity festivals, he snarled. Just then, my phone buzzed once more, tearing me from the brewing confrontation. I had hoped against hope it would show some reprieve, a glimmer of good news, but a new message flashed across the screen that froze my heart in my chest. You're running out of time. You think you're safe? I'm watching. Panic surged through me, erupting like a wild tide that knocked the ground out from under me. Stop! I shouted, my voice thick with a fear I couldn't contain. Mom! What's wrong? Anna's bewilderment mirrored in her wide eyes, filling me with guilt as I struggled to maintain my composure. Then it hit me, if those watching us took action against my self-protective thoughts, no comfort would shield Anna from the reality that the threats were escalating. I'm fine, just stay close to me, I stammered, my heart hammering against my chest like a desperate bird trying to break free. But terror brewed beneath the fragile calm I presented, and I took a step back, needing space to gather my thoughts as the warm safety of the cafe morphed into a battleground. Why are you scared, Mom? Anna asked, her brows knitting together, and the depth of her trust pierced the noise around us like a knife. For a moment, I wanted to confess everything, the messages, the fear, the haunting shadows creeping around my heart, but something held me back. The weight of her innocence felt like a damning reminder of the world beyond these walls. How could I shatter that purity with tales of threats so vile? Behind me, the tension pulsed, and I felt Reinhold's hand brush against my back, a small touch, a reminder that there was strength in vulnerability. As I turned to face Marcus and the creeping clouds of fear, I wished desperately to reclaim control, to harness the flicker of hope in the cafe despite the incoming storm. But as Marcus took a step forward with a predatory glint in his eye, I felt unease coil around my throat. This isn't over, he sneered, glancing at Anna with a malevolent smirk, before sweeping the group away, the lingering unease trailing behind them. As they left, a part of me felt relief, but it was overwhelmed by the unease that settled in my gut, the realization that this was only the beginning. I turned to Anna, ready to shield her from the truth unraveling before us, but the shock in her gaze haunted me. Mom, are we really safe? She whispered, the sincerity of her words unearthing the dread I worked so hard to hide. In that moment, as Maria and Reinhold exchanged concerned glances, I felt despair intertwining with the once bright flame of hope. Was it enough to hold tight to each other when the world threatened to rip us apart? Would my efforts to shield Anna fail in the face of looming darkness? A sudden noise erupted from outside. The harsh blare of a horn echoed, pulling my attention to the street. A small crowd had gathered, shouting, perhaps drawn by the conflict that had unfolded. And then, a figure broke free from the swarm. A glimpse caught my eye, sending shards of dread through my veins as I saw the recognizability of an old threat, a face I hadn't seen in years. My heart raced not just with recognition, but with the devious smile that twisted across his lips as he walked toward our cafe. The chaos outside spiraled within, harbingers of what was to come. I grasped Anna's hand tightly and realized, I was no longer sure if I could keep my daughter safe or if the urgent brush of determination could shield us from all that awaited. It felt as if the world tilted, and in its unsteady balance, I grappled with the weight of that truth. We were deeper in the fight than I dared to admit, and it was only the beginning of a long and treacherous road ahead. The warmth of the cafe felt like a false sanctuary, and as I held on to Anna's small hand, I could sense the world narrowing around us. We were no longer just mother and daughter, we were fragile warriors standing at the precipice of a storm that threatened to engulf us. The air crackled with tension as the figure outside Hector, the very ghost of my past, moved inches closer. "Mom, who is that?" Anna asked, her voice a mere flicker against the growing storm. I swallowed hard, the answer lodged in my throat like shards of glass. Hector was not just an echo of history, he was a reminder of unresolved pain, of betrayals that had once turned my life into a battlefield. "He's an old acquaintance," I managed, trying to shield her from the truth without smothering my fear under false bravado. But Anna, with her innocent eyes and unwavering trust, saw through the shroud of my made-up comfort. Against a backdrop of bustling students, Hector's magnetic presence drew attention. I could see the recognition flash across faces, a mix of fear and unease akin to what swirled within me. Memories flooded back: the hasty goodbye, the last bitter argument, the seething tension that had once rendered us strangers. "Why does he look at us like that?" Anna asked as we both watched the scene unfold. My heart sank, torn between wanting to protect her and the overwhelming need to confront the ghosts that surfaced. "Mom," her voice, soft yet insistent, urged me to respond, and in that moment, everyone's attention seemed to hang on my answer, as though the truth itself had weight and power. Before I could muster more than a shaky breath, Hector broke free from the throng. His strides were confident, assured, a predator loosening his jaws around unsuspecting prey. The commotion around him quieted, pulled into an intimacy steeped in desperation. My heartbeat drummed loudly against my ribcage as the world dissolved into the periphery, narrowing down to the fierce intensity in his gaze. As he approached, the familiarity of his features morphed before me, invaded by a cornered rage feeding off my fear. "I see the past hasn't treated you kindly, Maria," he called, his voice a mix of mockery and intrigue. The weight of his words felt stifling, twisting the air around us. I struggled to find my voice, to reclaim the narrative from a man who once knew my vulnerabilities all too well, but just as I readied myself to respond, a shimmer of unexpected warmth brushed against my arm, a gesture so simple yet so profound. I turned to find Reinhold standing close, a steadying presence, his expression a mix of concern and fierce determination. "You're not alone in this," he murmured, his voice low enough for only me to hear. In that moment, an invisible thread tied us together. It was as if he was offering me the strength I feared I had lost. I took a breath, summoning the courage buried beneath years of hurt. "What do you want, Hector?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. His smile broadened, but it wasn't the kind of joy that accompanied reunion. It was the kind that signified the unraveling of old wishes and new threats. "I thought we should have a little chat, just the three of us. After all, familial bonds should never be severed, should they?" His eyes flickered to Anna, and my stomach twisted at the implications lurking beneath his words. "Get away from my daughter, Hector." The fierceness of my own voice surprised me, yet it was overshadowed by the fear dancing in my chest. He laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the air like broken glass. "Oh, but she is such a precious little accessory. You followed your own little path away from me, yet here you are, tangled together in this idyllic setting. He gestured broadly, his gesture sweeping towards the cafe, the community that had become our refuge. Anna squeezed my hand tighter, sensing the shift in atmosphere. I couldn't bear the idea of her viewing more of my past than she already had. A glimpse of Hector's darkness could shatter her innocence like glass. "Mom, what's happening?" Anna prompted again, her voice trembling. Each word was a plea, a reminder of the responsibility I carried not just for her survival but for her perception of safety and love. Hector chuckled softly, his gaze sharp. "Tell her the truth, Maria. You're already halfway there." "Truth is, you have no claim over my life anymore," I retorted, forcing a sense of defiance to rise against the tidal wave of my fear. "You left, you chose to walk away." His brow arched, and I could see the malevolence crystallizing in his expression. "I chose to stand aside while you floundered in your self-righteous journey. But now, I'm tempted to break that little bubble you've built." With my heart racing, I turned to Reinhold. He was close enough for reassurance yet distant enough for needed space. His eyes held a mixture of concern and loyalty, a silent promise that he wouldn't abandon us to this darkness. Maria, too, stood nearby, a fierce glint in her eyes as she prepared for whatever Hector might hurl in our direction, but before we could fortify our defenses, a shout erupted from outside, pulling my attention back to the street. A group of students, earlier sympathetic onlookers, swirled like lost leaves thrust into chaos, gathering into a crowd once more, but their eyes were wide with panic, not just for the brewing confrontation, but because they had spotted something darker lurking in the shadows. That I turned just in time to see a figure watching us with cold detachment. Dread snaked its way through my veins. There was something satirical about the feeling that I wasn't just confronting Hector. A more insidious threat lingered, buoyed by shadows I couldn't fully comprehend. "Mom," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible amidst the rising tension. "What is happening?" I felt the world start to slip through my fingers once more, the fragile fabric of safety unraveling with menace. Hope flickered as I searched for words, but they evaded me. The tightness around my throat constricted my ability to speak, leaving me tense and devoid of control. Hector took a bold step forward, and whether it was my intuition or some deeper instinct, I braced for impact because I knew in that moment, this was the beginning of our reckoning. I squeezed Anna's hand tighter, choking back on my panic. Would we have the strength to withstand what was brewing? My heart hammered as I understood the chilling reality. The past wasn't just haunting us, it was ready to renew its assault, and the storm was on the cusp of breaking. The cafe felt like a ship caught in a tempest, its walls trembling as the winds of old ghosts roared outside. I could barely breathe as the figure lurking in the shadows sent a chill rippling through the already tense atmosphere. Hector's audacity was matched only by the dread settling over me like a suffocating fog. The laughter of students turned into an echo of my own shattered past, casting doubt on the refuge I'd built for Anna. "Mom," Anna whispered again, her eyes darting between Hector and the strange figure watching from the distance. I couldn't decipher the trust in her gaze or the hint of fear swimming beneath it. My heart twisted, and I feared I was about to take her on a perilous journey into darkness she didn't deserve. Before I could frame a comforting response, a voice sliced through the air, clear and unyielding. "Enough." It was the cleaning lady from our cafe, her sturdy frame silhouetted against the dim light. She stepped forward, unperturbed by the tension spiraling between us. I had always noticed the compassion woven into her work, the way she seemed to carry an unspoken kindness in her heart. But now, I felt gratitude swell inside me as I realized she was stepping in to protect us. "You won't touch them," she declared, her voice steady as a lighthouse in the storm. As the words left her lips, the crowd around us began to shift, sensing the unyielding defiance woven into her presence. In her eyes flickered a fierce love, a glimmer of hope I sorely lacked. Hector's amused grin faltered, confusion washing over him. "And who might you be to interrupt my reunion?" "I am someone who won't stand by while you threaten this family," she replied, a determined fire igniting in her posture. Her steadfastness lifted the fog of helplessness that had rolled in, revealing a clarity amidst the chaos. Anna squeezed my hand tighter, her small fingers trembling. "Mom, who is she?" I could hear the curiosity and concern coiling in her question. She's someone who cares, I replied, feeling warmth start to push back the coldness that enveloped me. It was strange to feel solidarity in such a disheartening circumstance, but that moment of unexpected kindness ignited a flicker of courage within me. And we need that right now. Hector's dismissal was palpable, his features twisted with a combination of contempt and annoyance. Delusions of grandeur won't save you, old friend, but rather than shattering under his gaze, the cleaning lady stood unwavering. I've seen what a monster can do to a family, and I will not allow you to cast your shadow over these two. Her voice rang with an authority born from survival, her own scars showing through when she boldly stepped between us and Hector. Realizing the power of her words, a shudder tore through me. I had been prepared to fight a battle alone, but here was someone an unexpected ally willing to stand against the darkness with fierce resolve. Just then, the figure in the shadows moved forward, melting into the light, revealing an unanticipated identity, a face I hadn't seen in years, a woman who had once been my closest confidant, someone whose own decisions had drawn us apart. Nina, Maria, she whispered, her voice barely reaching me as the air thickened around us. I'm so sorry for everything. Hector froze, eyes narrowing at the sight of Nina. You. This is your doing. Bringing in the help. He turned his mocking gaze toward the cleaning lady. You think you can protect them? They've always belonged to me, he hissed, his words redolent with menace. Nina stepped towards me, a concoction of emotions swirling in her expression. I've seen the damage he's caused. I didn't wish to get involved, but now I can't stand by, she said, her voice firm, yet laced with an undercurrent of remorse. I want to help. As I struggled to reconcile the tumult of past betrayals and present intentions, I could see Hector's facade crack with irritation, unwilling to accept the possibility that his reign over my life could be challenged by unexpected forces. He has no right, I whispered, barely audible above the tumult happening around me, a fervent prayer escaping my lips. The past, I realized, wasn't just a haunting, it had birthed allies and enemies alike. Feeling the anger simmering beneath my skin, I turned to Hector, my heart pounding. No one is leaving this cafe as you wish. He laughed again, disdain washing over his features. What's a mother without her cage? There will never be freedom until you allow me to guide you. Do you really think just because you've gathered friends, you can challenge me? But it wasn't just his words that twisted inside me. I felt the pull of a deeper historical thread weaving through my heart, reminding me that every second within this space was filled with moments potent enough to change futures. In that revelation, I sensed a power shift, the once familiar bond of fear crackling with the electricity of defiance and newfound unity. It was in the hands of those willing to protect, as much as those who threatened. Suddenly, an overwhelming wave of renewed urgency crashed through me, sweeping away the remnants of my hesitation. And who will you turn to when shadows consume you, Hector? I pressed. Are you willing to stake your claim only on fear? The atmosphere grew dense as both my allies and old enemies braced for what might come next. The tension felt like a taut string ready to snap, yet fragments of hope flourished amidst the uncertainty. Anna's hand trembled in mine, but beneath that fear, I felt her courage blossom brighter, an echo of my own defiance. With my heart hammering, I pulled her closer, searching for the words that would bind us together amidst this storm. We won't let fear define us, I whispered, determination threading through my voice. In that moment of unyielding unity, I looked to the cleaning lady, and then at Nina, my past adversary turned forger of hope. Together, we would face Hector, all of us standing against a history begging us to falter. As the air shifted and the tension curved towards something bigger, something potent and unyielding, but before we could fully regroup, the crowd outside swelled again, a sound rising to meet us, a scream of shock that flooded into the cafe, drowning our resolve with dread. What's happening? Anna cried, her voice barely rising above the chaos that crashed through the doorway, signaling a breaking point none of us could foresee. As I turned to face the unexpected storm that had somehow shifted shapes, the shadows of the past ready to re-emerge, I knew we were standing on the brink of revelation. And as the scream echoed through the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that our confrontation had only begun. The commotion outside surged like a tidal wave, crashing into our sanctuary. The screams painted chaos across the air, drowning out everything else as people rushed into the cafe, their faces twisted with fear. I tightened my grip on Anna's hand, ready to shield her from whatever was spilling over the edge of sanity. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, drowning out the sounds of confusion as I scanned the faces around us, desperate for a glimpse of reassurance. Stay close, I urged, instinctively pulling Anna behind me as Maria stood resolute, her unwavering stance a beacon of courage in this brewing storm. Nina joined us, her past transgressions forgotten in the heat of the moment, her presence a reminder that alliances could be forged anew even in the darkest of times. The shouting escalated, pressing in on us like a noxious fog. Get out of here. He's coming. I strained to make sense of the chaos. My heart sank as I caught sight of a group of students scrambling inside, their usual bravado extinguished by the raw edge of terror, their eyes wide, filled with realization of something looming just beyond the door. Who's coming? I shouted, forcing myself to the forefront, seeking answers in the rapidly shifting dynamics around me. My pulse quickened, anxiety bleeding into an icy certainty that this was different. This was not merely a confrontation. Something far more sinister threatened to unravel the tenuous threads of peace we had built. That we saw Marcus. One of the girls cried, her hair wild, panting with exertion as the group sorted themselves into a flurry of words. He brought his friends there armed. They're targeting you, Maria. Shock rippled through me like icy tendrils. What? I managed, the truth crashing over me like frigid water. This wasn't just about my past, it was a prelude to violence, an echo of all the choices that had led to this moment. The darkness wasn't merely reaching for us, it was already here. No. Anna's voice cut through the rising horror, her words piercing the tumult around us like arrows seeking their targets. Mom, we can't. As dread churned beneath my heart, an urgency drove me to look into my daughter's wide eyes, searching for any signs of the strength I had hoped she would possess in times like this. Stay back with Maria. I shouted, my voice firm yet laced with fear as the reality of our situation began to crystallize around us. I need you to be safe. No. She protested instinctively, her voice emboldened by a courage I had yet to fully comprehend. I want to help. For a brief moment, confusion unraveled within me, and I could see flickers of the girl who was once so easy to protect. But that wasn't the reality anymore. Anna, this isn't the time. I cried, but she simply shook her head, determination lighting a spark in her gaze. The chaos swelled as students flooded into the room, their breaths shallow, panic threading through them like a wire. I could feel the lines begin to blur. What I had hoped was a safe haven now pulsed with uncertainty. Then, from the outer fringes of turmoil, Hector emerged, cut through the chaos like a wraith, a twisted smile lingering on his lips. His ominous presence was a stark reminder of how deeply entrenched fear can be. He wasn't just an echo from my past but a living embodiment of the darkness that loomed just out of reach. I see you've stirred quite the ambience, but I believe this is all a misunderstanding, he called, projecting a demeanor that masqueraded as charm, yet was far more sinister. Stay away from us. I barked, stepping forward, the walls crashing against the anxiety bubbling within me. This isn't your place anymore, but I could see the suffocating shadows behind him as he crooked a finger toward the doorway, casually beckoning a mass of discontented energy that spilled into the cafe's very fabric of cruel intentions spiraling into our reality. As I glanced back at Anna, her expression was a cocktail of desire and resolve, her little hands shaking but eyes fierce, showcasing a strength I was only just beginning to recognize. We can't hide, Mom. We're stronger together. As her words spurred something in me, I felt the fog of despair begin to lift. The notion of standing together, though daunting in its audacity, began forging a transformative bond one had long sought. You're right, I breathed, understanding the collective beating of our hearts. If we were going to face this storm, we had to lean into what solidarity meant, together. I cried, lifting my chin defiantly towards the looming threats that circled us. No matter what happens, too late for that. Hector interjected, his voice dripping with malice, a desperate attempt to snuff out our slow-burning flame of defiance. But that flame ignited the courage coursing through my veins. Enough. Rang out a voice I hadn't anticipated, rooted in authority. From the doorway, a figure clad in a school uniform surged forward. Isabel, the cleaning lady who had become much more than a mere acquaintance. "You will leave them alone," she commanded, stepping into our formed line of unity. Stunned disbelief rippled through the air, halting Hector's advances, if only for a moment. "And you think you can raise a finger against me?" He spit, his bravado splintering against the solidarity radiating from our unlikely coalition, but Isabel stood her ground, fearlessly eyeing him down as though he had misplaced the power he thought he wielded. "You don't know the strength of community, Hector. You don't know the power of love," she declared, her voice loud and clear. In that moment, as we anchored ourselves in our resolve, the kids around us began to rally, echoing Isabel's words, a chant building like a wave. Some were hesitant, glancing around nervously, others found their voices, and together, we formed a fortress bound by fierce determination. "We are not afraid." Hector's expression darkened, a slow burn of realization creeping across his face as the power of our undeniable coalition began to resonate. "Foolishness," he hissed, but even to himself, the words felt hollow against the symphony of bravery surrounding us all. And then, a surprising shift occurred. Nina stepped forward, stepping closer to me, her eyes alight with fierce urgency. "Maria, we can't let this perpetuate. This is the moment we change everything." Her words anchored the resolve deepening within me, pulsing with an authenticity that reminded me that standing together meant confronting our pasts while building a future from fragments of brokenness. With a nod toward Isabel, we turned to face Hector, a united front, each of us imbued with our own stories, vulnerabilities, and the shared will to protect those we loved. "Together, we will fight this darkness," I declared, my voice echoing strong as a rallying cry, layering hope over fear with every syllable. "We will not yield, and we will not be broken." And as those words carried us, I felt the weight of fear and uncertainty begin to dissolve, not completely, but enough to see the way forward unfolding. With one last glance at Anna, whose face glowed with unyielding spirit, I understood, we would not just confront our past, we would embrace the power of hope and courage as we stood tall against whatever storm awaited us, and together, we would rise. As we took a collective breath, the energy in the room shifted, amplified by the fervor in our hearts. "Let's go!" surged as our chant filled the air, echoing like an unstoppable tide against the crashing darkness that loomed just beyond the threshold. In that moment of unified strength, I realized that it was in each other's spirits that we found our refuge, a place brimming with unwavering support, togetherness, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow beyond the shadows. Together, stronger than fear, and together, we stepped forward, ready to face whatever dark chapter the fates had yet to unfold. For we were not marked by our pasts but emboldened by our choices, and nothing could diminish the beauty of our shared resolve.